3 hacks rewrote the rules of security. 1 broke machines, 1 froze hospitals, and 1 exposed 147 million people. Think of 3 moments that forced everyone to change. A worm that damaged centrifuges, ransomware that stopped hospital care, a credit bureau leak that exposed almost half a country. These events didn't feel the same, but they share a pattern, a hidden flaw, a brief window, and massive consequences. Over the next 10 minutes, I'll open each case, extract the defensive wins, and give concrete steps you can start this week. First, Stuxnet. What makes a hack world-changing? Scale matters, millions affected or critical services hit. Sophistication matters, novel techniques or clever chaining of bugs. Systemic impact matters, new laws, standards, or boardroom questions. And lasting lessons matter, blind spots everyone suddenly notices. These 3 hacks ticked different boxes. Stuxnet changed how nations think about weapons. WannaCry changed patching behavior. Equifax changed data governance. Next, let's pull the ribbon on Stuxnet and see how software became a tool for physical sabotage. Stuxnet appeared around 2009 to 2010, but it wasn't a typical virus. Engineers later found code precisely targeting Siemens programmable logic controllers tied to uranium enrichment. It moved into supposedly isolated networks and then nudged machine speed and vibration. Operators saw normal telemetry while hardware broke. That stealth made Stuxnet a milestone, code causing kinetic damage without visible sabotage. How did it cross an air gap and evade detection long enough to succeed? The answer is a chain of clever moves. Initial access likely came from something as mundane as a USB drive or a vendor laptop. Contractors and removable media bridged the air gap. Once inside, Stuxnet relied on multiple zero-day Windows exploits to elevate privileges and hide itself. It used stolen digital certificates to appear legitimate. That combination let it spread inside the plant while evading signature-based defenses. So the first lesson is operational. Isolation only works if people and supply chains are controlled. Next, the worm executed a surgical payload. After gaining foothold, Stuxnet sought very specific targets. The malware identified Siemens PLC models and modified control commands subtly. It didn't just flip a switch. It altered centrifuge speeds and timing to induce wear and failure over weeks. Meanwhile, it fed fake sensor readings back to operator screens so everything looked normal. Those stolen certificates and zero-day exploits masked its presence. The combination of targeted payload and stealth made detection nearly impossible until the machines failed. What changed for defenders after that realization? Stuxnet rewrote assumptions. Organizations stopped assuming air gaps were safe. Industrial control systems moved from the back shelf to boardroom agendas. Governments began treating cyber operations as strategic instruments. For defenders, the takeaways were practical. Inventory what's connected, segment OT from IT, and control vendors and removable media. Behavioral monitoring became essential because signatures missed the subtle manipulation. If a sensor reading looks perfect, but parts are failing, you must trust independent checks. Next, a very different attack that spread like wildfire, WannaCry. On May 12, 2017, WannaCry exploded across networks. It used ransomware to encrypt files and a worm to propagate automatically. Hospitals, factories, and governments felt the impact within hours. More than 150 countries reported infections. But the real lesson wasn't cryptography, it was propagation. WannaCry weaponized delayed patching and outdated protocols to move rapidly. How did an exploit from a shadowy agency become a global epidemic? The technical path reveals how small operational gaps become catastrophic. WannaCry used Eternal Blue, an exploit targeting the SMBv1 file-sharing protocol in Windows. Microsoft released a patch 2 months earlier, but many systems remained unpatched. Once inside a network, the worm scanned and jumped to other vulnerable machines without user interaction. A security researcher accidentally discovered a kill switch domain which slowed propagation, but not before significant damage. This attack showed how legacy protocols and poor patch discipline amplify risk. So why didn't organizations patch in time? The reasons matter for your team. Why did so many systems remain unpatched? The answer mixes process, risk assessment, and asset ownership. Some machines ran outdated software for compatibility. Some belonged to forgotten departments. Others lacked clear vulnerability SLAs or automation. The result, a single wormable exploit became a blast radius across organizations. Quick recap. Stuxnet forced OT visibility and behavioral monitoring. WannaCry forced urgent patching and protocol retirement. Equifax, coming next, forced data governance and accountability. Let's examine Equifax and the human failures behind it. The Equifax breach exposed data for 147 million Americans. Attackers exploited a known Apache Struts vulnerability with a public patch available months earlier. Instead of a zero-day mystery, this was a failure of process. Missing patches, expired TLS certificates that blinded detection, and poor segmentation that let attackers roam. Executives resigned and regulators tightened oversight. The breach showed that scale and sensitivity of data amplify consequences. So how did attackers move so freely inside Equifax's network? The answer is painful and instructive. The Equifax breach exposed data for 147 million Americans. Attackers exploited a known Apache Struts vulnerability with a public patch available months earlier. Instead of a zero-day mystery, this was a failure of process. Missing patches, expired TLS certificates that blinded detection, and poor segmentation that let attackers roam. Executives resigned and regulators tightened oversight. The breach showed that scale and sensitivity of data amplify consequences. So how did attackers move so freely inside Equifax's network? The answer is painful and instructive. Timeline matters. A critical Apache Struts bug got disclosed in March 2017. Patch available. By May, attackers found an unpatched web app and moved laterally for weeks. An expired TLS certificate disabled a crucial inspection tool. Without segmentation, a single app led to broad access. The breach persisted as no clear owner tracked the vulnerable component. These are operational failures, not impossible hacks. If you track vulnerabilities, certificates, and ownership, you reduce the chance of a similar cascade. Next, fallout and changes that followed. The fallout from Equifax included settlements reaching hundreds of millions and a long erosion of consumer trust. Regulators increased scrutiny and prompted better breach disclosures. Many companies adopted stronger vulnerability management and data minimization practices. Importantly, the breach made executives accountable. It also showed that stolen static identifiers, SSNs, birth dates, cause long-term harm because people can't change them. The bright side. These are addressable failures. The next section covers concrete defender actions inspired by Equifax. Fixes inspired by Equifax are straightforward and tactical. Maintain a real-time inventory of internet-facing apps. Assign owners for each component and track patch timelines. Automate certificate issuance and renewal to avoid blind spots. Segment networks so a single web app cannot reach sensitive data stores. Encrypt or tokenize personally identifiable information so stolen data is less useful. Log egress and detect unusual data flows. These steps reduce blast radius and buy time during an incident. Now let's pull the common threads across all three hacks. Across Stuxnet, WannaCry, and Equifax, the same fundamentals repeat. Patch with purpose, set risk-based SLAs, and measure mean time to remediate. Kill legacy tech like SNBV1 and end-of-life frameworks. Segment networks and apply microsegmentation around high-value assets. Backup offline and test restores. Embrace zero-trust principles. Verify explicitly and assume breach. Improve visibility with EDR, XDR, and centralized logging. Secure supply chains and demand SBOMs. Training and tabletop exercises turn plans into practiced responses. These patterns point to practical priorities. Policy and markets changed after these incidents. The U.S. created CISA to coordinate defenses. The NIST cybersecurity framework gained prominence. Ransomware coalitions and executive orders improved software supply chain scrutiny. Cyber insurance tightened underwriting, and vendors offering EDR, identity security, and microsegmentation grew rapidly. OT security became a boardroom topic. These shifts improved incentives, but they didn't eliminate risk. So are we safer now? And what new dangers have emerged? The answer is mixed. Short answer, partially. Defenses improved. Patch cadence got faster. SMBV1 largely vanished, and EDR is common. But attackers evolved too. Ransomware as a service made attacks easier for criminals. Supply chain and identity-based attacks multiplied. Cloud consolidation means a single compromised identity or software flaw can impact thousands. The posture shifted from cure prevention to resilience. Detect, respond, and recover quickly. So what do you actually do this week, this quarter? And this year to increase resilience, let's build a concrete roadmap. Start this week with high-impact actions. Patch critical internet-facing systems and known exploited vulnerabilities. Disable SOVV1 organization-wide. Enable multi-factor authentication on admin and remote access accounts. Validate recent backups by performing a test restore to a clean environment. Scan for expired or expiring TLS certificates and remediate immediately. These steps reduce immediate attack surface and improve recovery options. Ready for the next horizon? Here's what to do this quarter and this year to build lasting resilience. This quarter, inventory all assets IT and OT, include owners and business criticality. Deploy or tune EDR XDR and ensure alert triage runs smoothly. Segment networks with VLANs and firewalls, prioritizing domain controllers and crown jewel systems. Run tabletop exercises for ransomware, data exfiltration, and OT disruption. Launch phishing simulations paired with coaching. These steps build operational muscle and clear accountability. Now, look further. The long-term investments your organization must make this year. This year, adopt a zero-trust roadmap aligned to NIST SP 800-207. Implement privileged access management and just-in-time admin. Build a vulnerability management program with SLAs and executive reporting. Require SBOMs for critical suppliers and assess third-party risk. Conduct OT risk assessments if you operate industrial environments. Tie initiatives to business impact, downtime avoided, regulatory compliance, insurance eligibility, to secure sustained executive support. If you act on these priorities, you move from crisis response to sustained resilience. If this helped, hit like and subscribe for practical security guides. Comment one step you'll take this week, and I'll respond with a prioritization tip.